Hello and welcome to another bearing removal and installation video featuring Boca bearings. Today's engine is from 1979. It's an OS and it's a classic pattern engine. This engine dates back to, as I said, 1979 and was right around the time the 61 FSR came out. And it is modeled after, or I think maybe the FSR was modeled after this engine, I'm not sure which, but this is a 61 VF. It's a front carburetor design with a rear exhaust. Now, unfortunately, you're not going to see the entire engine in this video, but you are going to see the front housing and how easily, or difficult, whatever the case may be, bearing removal and installation is. So let's go straight to the table and get this done. Okay, so here on the table I've got all the tools and equipment necessary for me to do this first part, which is the bearing removal. And here is the front housing of this 61 VF engine. Now I have already pre-lubricated this. Now this engine seemed like it was maybe run one time. It's in beautiful condition. The bearings were rather notchy, but that could just be that they were old and dried out. But I have lubricated it for removal, and actually they're feeling pretty decent right now. So the other things I've got here is I've got part of the miniature bearing removal set from Boca. This is the receiver chuck and the needle chuck. In the event that that bearing doesn't come off on the crankshaft, so if the crankshaft comes out and the bearing stays in there, I may need to employ using this tool. I've also got a wood dowel here to punch out that front bearing. Hopefully that's the small enough diameter to do that. If not, I've got a flat nose punch. I've got a light hammer, and I've got a wrench and some channel locks here just so I can make adjustments to this. I've got my bench vise here, and of course off camera I've got my heat resistant glove and my heat gun. So last but not least is I've got the bearings. We don't really need to talk about these for the removal part, but I did have them sitting here, so I'll put them aside until the installation portion. I forgot my piece of wood that I'm going to need to use to tap out that crankshaft. Now this front housing is pretty stout, so I'm going to heat this up considerably. So I'm probably going to just pause the video here while I'm heating this up because this has got a lot of mass to it, and I'd really like that rear bearing to come off with the crankshaft if at all possible. Let's see if that's enough. Let's see if I've got this open up enough. Right there should be good. Let's see how willing this thing is going to be to come out. Okay, so the crankshaft's coming out very easily, and the bearing's coming out with it too. Look at that. So there we go. We've got that off. Now we can just drive this front bearing out, which should just be a quick few taps here. And our front bearing is out. So there's our front housing. Crankshaft removed, bearings out, and now that just needs to be cleaned in the ultrasonic. Let me see how hot this is, because right now I got to get that bearing off there, and I don't really want to burn my hand, but I think I should probably leave my glove on. So the method to employ to remove this bearing now is I'm going to be putting this, I'm going to start with the dowel, see if that works. If not, I'll have to move to a punch, and just alternately tap on this thing while turning the crankshaft to get on all the sides of this thing. I'm just going to put it right here. Oof, that's really warm. Let me just see if the dowel's going to... Okay. The dowel's going to work here. This is coming up really easily. Rotate this and get on another side of it here. There we go. Okay, so that bearing is off. And there is our bearing removal for this engine. Now all I need to do is clean up these parts and then we'll move on to the bearing installation portion of this video. Okay, so I am ready for the bearing assembly or installation portion of this video, and I've got a few different items on the table. First, I've got the nicely cleaned up crankshaft. I've got the cleaned up front housing where we will be installing the bearings. I've got a different tool here. This is a really beat up short socket extension that I'm going to use just as a drive to drive this into the crankshaft or the crankcase housing to fit that rear bearing. I've got the two old bearings that came out of this engine, my wood block that I forgot in the first segment, the hammer, a glass jar, and of course a container of Boca's road power lubricant, so I can use that to install or to pre-lubricate all of these parts for facilitation of the bearing installation. And of course now I've got the bearings. This is a set of Boca bearings. This is part number. It'll be on the screen. It'll be in the description. This is ENK-002, kit number ENK-002. So the reason I've got these other two bearings here is just to make sure that these are the right sizes. I like to kind of check them out side by side anyway. Now, one of the things I noticed is in the removal phase, I said these bearings felt like they were fairly decent. But I found that it's really easy to tell here. You can hear, even though this is a low time bearing, I think you can hear the sound it's making. Now, it shouldn't make any sound at all. So both of these bearings, you know, they still rotate well, but they could probably use a little bit of refurbishment. So let's see here. These look identical, so we're good to go there. So I'm going to grab a small flat blade screwdriver, and as you can see, this rear bearing is open shielded on both sides. There has no shields or seals on either side. The front bearing is a metal shielded with the rear of the bearing open. So I'm going to leave one of these rubber seals on here and just remove one side so that we can be the same as what came out of the engine. On this one I'm going to remove both. So I just kind of go in here right near the inner race and just gently lift up on this. Now these are rubber sealed bearings, which means they could be reinstalled if necessary, if you're just going to be servicing engines or servicing bearings. So when it's a steel shield and you remove that shield, you damage it permanently and it cannot be reinstalled like these rubber sealed ones can. So there we go. So one side is completely open and then one side has the plastic race. And right now what I'm going to do is take the lid off my jar, put one pump of road power in here, set that aside, and I'm just going to use that to lubricate the parts here for bearing installation. And I'm going to hit the outsides of these bearings too. And since my finger will fit inside this one, I might as well do the inside of that one also. Okay, so there we go. We can move these two bearings out of the way. So what I like to do when I'm installing bearings in an engine is I'll always install the front one first. So I'll heat this up, put that one in, and then I'll install the rear one. What I'm going to do with the rear one is I'm going to leave the ball side completely with the plastic race facing forward and the balls facing rearward. And I like to just install this on the crankshaft like this first, because that way when I'm installing the rear bearing with the front bearing in place, it gives me a centering mechanism and it allows this thing to make sure that this is going in nice and straight. So let me grab my glove. We'll heat this housing up and drop that bearing in real quick. enough. Wow, that just went right in place. Let's see how easy this one's going to be. Look at that. Now, when this cools, it'll contract probably right onto that bearing. So I didn't even need to do anything with that. How does it get any easier than that? That is about as easy a bearing installation as you'll ever see. That front bearing I probably could have put in by hand also. So that concludes our bearing installation video, removal and installation video for this vintage, beautiful OS 61VF two-stroke pattern engine.